Now kids, don't eat those until after service.
Oh, good job.
So give them to mommy or daddy or grandma or grandpa, uncle, aunt. Let them hold it and keep it safe for you until after service. You can take them outside, downstairs, next door, and you can eat it. And save it for after service, okay? Can you do that?
All right.
Amen. Thank you so much, Sister Priska and Sister Renee. Heavenly Father, we just come before you right now in the name of Jesus once again, asking that you would prepare our hearts and our minds to receive what you have for us through your word. We ask that you would speak and that we would not only hear, but we would listen. And help us to be doers of your word. And we give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 23 through 27 reads like this. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free from perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought. Someone say careful thought.
Careful thought.
Give careful thought to the paths of your feet, and be steadfast in all of your ways. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from evil. So for the next few moments, I want us to wrestle with this question. What are you guarding? What are you guarding? Turn to your neighbor and say, what are you guarding?
What are you guarding?
Turn to your neighbor on the other side and say, what are you guarding?
What are you guarding?
I think that's the first time I've ever said turn to your neighbor. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. We live in a world system which values external possessions above the human heart. We deal with 24/7 messaging and programming and advertising and sound bites that tell us that we are nothing without wealth, that we are nothing without fame, that we are nothing without political clout, that we are nothing if we don't have the latest fashions or the flyest car, that we are nothing if we don't live in a beautiful house or have a nice apartment, that we are nothing if we don't have the latest technology and gadgets, that we are nothing if we don't have good hair and good makeup, that we are nothing if we don't have an attractive physique, physical strength, that we are nothing if we don't have a high IQ, we're nothing if we don't have an Ivy League education, that we're nothing if we don't have a good job or a dream career, that we're nothing if we don't have social media likes and follows and viral videos. We are bombarded with messaging and programming and images and sound bites that place our focus on the external And we are told to give our hearts to these things. But the Bible tells us that ultimately, we are nothing without God.
Amen.
That Jesus says, what good is it if you gain the whole world, if you have all of the stuff, and yet you lose your soul because you don't have the one person who matters most, and that is God.
Preach.
That is Jesus, the Son of God. You see, we are collectively and individually caught up, stuck in a war. Whether we know it or not, and that war is a battle for our hearts. On one side, God is calling us to Himself. He's calling our hearts to Him. On the other side is the devil who's coercing us to himself. And both God and the devil desire for us to worship them. They desire for us to give our hearts to them. Everything we do is about worship. And we're either going to worship God, or we're going to worship the devil, and by extension, any created thing that we put in place of God. So when we talk about worship, we're talking about honoring the right person, which is the Lord, honoring Him, acknowledging His place in our life, relying and trusting on Him. So God is He rightfully deserves our worship because He's our Creator.
Amen.
He's our sustainer. He's our provider. And He's a whole lot more. But the devil desires our worship, and the devil is nothing but a liar, a thief, and a deceiver. And he wants to steal worship from God so that he can further incite rebellion in humanity. And that's rebellion against God. And so he uses 24/7 messaging, programming, imagery, and sound bites to get us to take our focus off of what truly matters and who truly matters, which is Christ, and to place our focus on anything else. What's truly important is a relationship with God.
Amen.
And the devil is working overtime to keep us busy doing everything that keeps us away from having a relationship with God. And so this is why Proverbs 4:23 is so vital. Because it says here, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. But here's the problem. Mostly, above all else, we guard everything else except our hearts. Our greatest possession is our heart. God's greatest gift to us is His Son and His Holy Spirit. But our greatest possession is our heart. And we just easily turn it over to people, places, and things that will do us no good, that will seek to destroy us. How many of us know of somebody who was talented and smart, but they got mixed up with the wrong person, the wrong places, and the wrong things, and their talent could not save them. Their IQ could not save them because they had turned their heart over. And Jesus says, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. And so we are in a battle for our hearts. The heart is defined as the center of spiritual activity within us. and all the operations of human life. The heart is the home of our personal life. It's the seat of our conscience. It's the core of who we are. Who we are is not this body, because we can lose limbs and still be who we are. But our heart is the core of who we are. And so where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Church, where is your treasure this morning? Satan wants us to find our treasure in the world system. God wants us to find our treasure in Him. Satan wants us to expend and exhaust our heart for the world. But you and I know that the world ultimately chews us up and spits us out. So here's a plaque to say thank you for your time. God wants us to give our heart to Him. Satan, through the world, says, follow your heart. Your heart is good. God, through His Word, says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can know it? So the world says, follow your heart. And your heart is good. But God says our heart is wicked. It's deceitful. Who can know it? It's beyond cure. But God also says in His Word that we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Amen.
So in Jeremiah 17:9, it says that the heart is deceitful above all things, and yet in Psalm 139:14, we find, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And so we find that we're like when we go to the doctor and we have a condition that we're unsure of, and the doctor runs the test and comes in with some bad news and some good news. So God comes in and we're sitting on the table, and God comes to us and He says, I've got some bad news for you. And that bad news is that your heart is corrupted by sin. You have this sin-sick heart condition, and the bad news is there's no human cure for it. All we have to do is look around, and we see that there's no human cure for our heart-corrupted sin condition. Everything we try in order to mend the heart on the human level does not work. There is no human cure. That's the bad news. But then God says, but there's some good news. I have the cure. And the cure is my Son,
Amen.
Jesus. So what I would like to do is to perform a divine heart surgery on you. I will, through my Son, through the blood that was shed on the cross, I will cleanse the sin from your heart. And I will give you a new heart. And with this new heart, you will be able to be in right relationship with me. With this new heart, you will be able to live out the plans and purposes that I have for you. With this new heart, you will be guaranteed a place in my kingdom for all eternity.
Thank you.
This new heart will give you new life, a new relationship, a new purpose. And with this new heart, whatever you lose in this life, in your pursuit of me, in the end you will receive with interest.
Amen.
Whatever you've lost in pursuing me, in the end will be restored with interest. So God tells us here in Proverbs 4, above all else, guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. Everything that you do flows from it. So that raises two questions that I want to quickly deal with. One, why should we guard our heart? And 2, how do we guard our hearts? So say, why should we guard our hearts?
Why should we guard our hearts?
All right, so there are 2 reasons, and there's probably more, but there are 2 reasons that we're going to look at right now. Number 1, we should guard our hearts because there are forces at work to destroy us. We should guard our hearts because there are forces at work to destroy us. And these forces are both external and internal. So we have external forces, political forces, institutionalized, structured forces that are at work, governmental forces that are at work, financial forces that are at work to try and keep us down and to keep us oppressed and to keep us from achieving everything that God wants us to do. And so that lets us know that everyone who says that they're for you is not for you.
Right.
That's the external force, that everyone who says that they're trying to do something on your behalf may not necessarily be doing things on your behalf. And you have to realize that there are external forces, that everyone who comes and smiles in your face, some of them will be trying to stab you in your back when you turn around and walk away. We have to realize that there are external forces at work trying to demolish our lives. Physical external forces, there are spiritual external forces. The Bible lets us know that there is a devil, that there is darkness, that demons do exist, that they are not just superstition or old wives' tales, that there are external forces at work trying to demolish our lives. And because there are external forces at work, we need to guard our hearts. That's why in Ephesians 6, the Bible talks about putting on the whole armor of God, so that we can stand against the spiritual darkness and Satan and the darkness that's trying to demolish us. That he lets us know that we don't just wrestle with flesh and blood. That though we may have physical enemies who are coming against us, they are not our real enemy. Our real enemy is the devil who is behind there pulling the strings.
Right. Preach.
So we're supposed to put on our helmet of salvation and our breastplate of righteousness and the waist belt of truth and the shoes of the gospel of peace and take the shield of faith, which quenches every fiery dart of the wicked, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and covering everything with the cloak, the cape of prayer.
Amen.
Because we're in a battle. And the enemy would like us to think that there is no battle, that it's a figment of our imagination, so we can let our heart just be open and unguarded, so that we can be swayed and deceived and taken wherever the enemy would like to take us. But we need to guard our heart because there are forces at work, both external and internal, that mean us no good. The internal forces that are at work, the Bible lets us know that we can be our own worst enemy. James chapter 1, verses 13 to 15 says this: when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. The Bible lets us know that we can be our own worst enemy if we don't guard our hearts, that our own heart can turn against us. Our own thought, the fallen nature that we wrestle against, can turn against us and lead us in a path that's not good for us. 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 and 16 says this: do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The Bible lets us know that the world's not talking about the sunset and the sunrise and the oceans and the mountains and the birds. It's talking about the world system, that fallen world system, the fallen human system that is operated by our fallen nature. It says if we love that, then the love of the Father is not in us. And it says that internally we wrestle with, when we see all of the bright lights and everything in the world, it arises in us the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That our flesh feels like I can do everything that I'm big enough to do in order to meet its desires. That our eyes say, ooh, that looks nice. I want that. Even though I don't have money for that. I want that. Even though that's not mine. I'm going to take it from this person. And that's why we have murders and robbers and killings and stealings and all of those things. Because of the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes. And then the pride of life comes in. The arrogance of life, of our status. And we say that there are certain things we just won't do because that's beneath me. And so when God comes along and says, I want you to humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and in due season I will exalt you, but yet we don't want to be humble because of the pride of life, then we miss out on what God has for us. When God says, I want you to minister to someone who may physically be beneath you because they don't have finances like you have, or they don't have a job like you have, or they don't have food like you have, and you say, oh no, I'm not talking to them, they're homeless, they're poor, and God says, okay, if you're going to act like that, because the Bible says that those who lend to the poor, they lend to the Lord. And so we get our own selves in trouble with the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life, because I guarantee you God will call you to mingle with those who are less fortunate than you, for the express purpose of you being able to let the light of Christ shine through you, to be a blessing to them. But if your heart is not guarded and kept for the Lord, then when those opportunities come, you and I, we will walk right by it. We will not hear the voice of God. We will miss it altogether. And we will miss out on what God has for us. So why guard our hearts? One, because there are forces at work trying to destroy us, both external and internal. And number two, we should guard our hearts because God loves you. Amen. And He wants you to be victorious in life. That's why we should guard our hearts. Jeremiah 29:11, you know what it says. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, plans to give you hope and a future. God wants to give you hope and a future. Amen. Matthew 5:16, Jesus says, in the same way, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. God wants us to do good deeds that bring glory to Him. 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. God promises. He's like, look, I want your victory so bad that when you encounter temptations, I'm going to make sure that somewhere in the midst of that temptation is an open door for your escape. No matter what the enemy tries to do, no matter when your flesh rises up, no matter when your eyes go the wrong way, no matter when the arrogance comes up, I will make a doorway of escape from the temptation. Now it's up to you if you're going to take it. But I will make sure that it's there. So nobody will be able to stand before God and say, God, where were you in my hard time? You didn't help me, because He's going to say, yeah, I had a door. You just didn't want to take it. So we should guard our hearts, because guarding our hearts makes us open to the Lord. So the question is, how do we guard our hearts? I've got 3 ways that we could guard our hearts. And before I tell you what those 3 ways are, I'm going to tell you the story. So you may have heard that some preachers will say that they often have to live the message that they're preaching, that God will take them through in order for them to be able to give it out, that happens a lot. So I just turned 45 yesterday.
Amen.
And so about 3 to 4 weeks ago, I found myself unexpectedly in the middle of a midlife crisis. Yeah, we can laugh now. Now, I went through a midlife crisis at 30. And I was going from 29 to 30. And I was going, what have I done with my life? All of my friends in college, we made pacts that by 25 we'd be taking the world by storm, we'd be doing this and that. And here we are, most of us coming up on 30, we were like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I haven't done anything. And so I was wrestling with that at 30. Came through that, the Lord brought me through that, and I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm good until whenever the Lord calls me home. I'm good. And then 3 to 4 weeks ago, I found myself waking up one day and I wasn't good. And I was going through, I was feeling dread as my birthday was getting closer. And people, 45 is you're officially middle age, you're close to 50. And you're going to do, I know some of you are like, I wish I could get back to 45. And so, I was going through the whole woulda, coulda, shouldas, and broken dreams, and unexpected, unmet expectations. And it was just for 3 to 4 weeks, it was just like this emotional roller coaster. I'd be frustrated one minute, and then I'm okay. And then I'm crying the next minute, and then I'm okay, and then I'm angry. And, like I told the Lord, I was like, God, there's never been a time except, with my suicide attempt, after high school, a month after high school, there's never been a time since then where I've been mad at you. I said, but God, I feel some kind of way about some things. And I'm just being honest. Right? And God can take honest talk.
Amen.
And so I said, God, I'm feeling angry, and I don't want to feel this way, but I don't know what's going on. And I didn't realize I was in a midlife crisis at that point. I was just feeling some kind of way. And so I started to realize I got more days behind me, possibly, than in front of me. And then I, more aches and pains and, all of those things. And I found that it was difficult to read the Word. It was difficult to pray.
Talking.
As your co-pastor, it was difficult to read the Word.
Preach.
And it was difficult to pray. And I wasn't really talking to anyone about it. And I was just trying to deal with it. And so last week I was praying because I knew, and Lord in His infinite mercy, Pastor was supposed to be away for the majority of July, which meant that I'd be preaching every week and all of those things. The Lord in His infinite mercy worked it out so Pastor could be here. And so when it came to preaching, I didn't have to do it. And I wasn't even in a place mentally and spiritually to do it. And so I said, God, thank you that whatever happened, that Pastor didn't do what he was scheduled to do, and he's here, and I didn't have to preach, and I said, Lord, thank you. And so I was praying, trying to press last week, and I'm like, God, what's going on? I need your help. And God spoke to me. And He said, guard your heart. Come on. That's all He said. And so I went to Proverbs 4:23. And He let me know that was going to be the message for today. But in order to get to today, I had to go through.
Preach. All right.
So when he said guard your heart, did I feel like guarding my heart?
No.
Did I want to guard my heart? But if I didn't begin to guard my heart, things would be a whole lot worse than what I was mentally and spiritually dealing with. And so there are 3 steps I'm going to say them, and then I'm going to unpack what the Lord did and then unpack those steps. So the 3 steps if we're going to guard our heart is, first we have to surrender our heart to Jesus.
Right.
Second, we have to learn how to follow His word. And third, we have to have accountability partners. All right, so we've got to surrender our heart to Jesus, learn how to follow His word, and then have accountability partners. So how did this play out over the last week? So the Lord said, guard your heart. And so I immediately surrendered my heart to Jesus. I said, Lord, okay, fine. I know that I am incapable of guarding my heart on my own. I need you to guard my heart for me.
Amen.
So I ask you to help me to guard my heart. Then I began to start to read the word and press and go, okay, I've got to obey the word. I've got to be in the word. You can tell when you are not in the word. You can feel the difference. Mentally, physically, spiritually, how your day goes. And so on Wednesday, we were at Bible study, midday Bible study, and I'm there teaching, going through scripture with the young seasoned ladies. You know, the senior citizens with young ladies. And we're there. When I got to Bible study, I didn't feel like being there. I just felt like I just wanted to burst out and just start crying. And here we are going through the Word, and I will tell you, as we began to read the Word, and as we began to dive into the Word, I could feel the funk start to break away just by being in the Word. So then, you know, when you talk about having accountability partners, so I started talking, I talked to my dad. I said, Dad, this is what I'm feeling. So we had a heart-to-heart conversation. I started talking with my wife and said, yeah, you know, I think I'm having a midlife crisis. And she said, oh, you just figured that out? She said, I figured that out a couple weeks ago. Well, your mood's weird, you know. So, you know, so we started having heart to heart. So this is how I'm feeling.